congratulations to Keisha for her brilliant work, which has made and will continue to make waves of new thought and new truths in the poetic landscape.
That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said about me.
Keisha for her brilliant work, which has made... I know I have been blessed to have experienced these poems over the past week, and I'm delighted that you all will have your own experiences with this amazing edition. So in honor of this celebration, Keisha has assembled us here to join in on a reading featuring Taylor Johnson, Zandria Phillips, and of course, Keisha herself. So without further ado, I just wanted to explain the format in which Taylor, Zandria, and Keisha will provide readings. And after the readings, I will pose some questions for discussion, just to talk about, the relationship between all of their works. So first up, we have Taylor Johnson. Taylor Johnson is proud of being from Washington, D.C. They've received fellowships and scholarships from Callaloo, Cave Canem, Lambda Literary, Tin House, the Vermont Studio Center, Yaddo, the Conversation Literary Festival, the Breadloaf Writers Conference, and the Breadloaf Environmental Writers Conference, among other organizations. In 2017, Taylor received the Larry Neal Writers Award from the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities. Their poems appear in the Baffler, Indiana Review, Scalawag, and the Paris Review, among other journals and magazines. Their first book, Inheritance, will be published this November 2020 with Alice James Books. Taylor lives in Southern Louisiana, where they listen.
Thanks, Warren. Thank you, Keisha, for having me here. It's a pleasure to read with you and Zandria. It's really good to see everybody's face. It's a true joy.
Which one would you like to read first, my friend?
I'll read got pulled up over here. I'll read Sounded Through. I first sent you Sounded Through. Okay. Sounded through from forever in the glade and unendingly so the animal choir sings my grandfather to forever. Forever is the sound of a seed opening, and so opens his body, my grandfather given back from attenuated beingness, the gray of which slips off as a seed from my finger slips into belonging. He was just turning a corner, just one foot following beside the other, but a bit behind as I would follow him, a bit behind, one thumb in his hammer loop. Our boots ringed in dew. I danced in his shadow and fit antlers on my head. Our language was twin green and nothing. He sang it from his elk body when he died. All right, I'll read the other one. I forget about money watching the clouds over 8th and Ingraham. The clouds, a rhubarb-colored ship in the sky. To my right, it all grays out. The bats emerging now from the chimneys. The bats listening for the cicadas echo. Echo is a way to create space, is a metaphor for time. Time for the cop to move along. I think watching the cop watch me from my porch. Fuck 12. The robin on the wire vine, the wire eye competing with the bats for cicadas, the robin competing reds with the sky are money for the cicadas, a way to make space, time, the cicadas sounding out the future through repetition. A friend says to spend nothing is to keep flexibility in your hands, to keep your youth, money the sound of decay, money the repetition of waste. Thanks, Keisha. Congratulations.
Thank you, Taylor. Zandria Phillips is a writer, educator, and visual artist from rural Ohio, the recipient of the Judith A. Markowitz Award for Emerging Writers. Zandria has received fellowships from Brown University, Callaloo, Cave Canem, the Conversation Literary Festival, Oberlin College, and the Wisconsin Institute for Creative Writing. Their poetry has been featured in American Poetry Review, Black Warrior Review, Bomb Magazine, Crazy Horror Quarterly Review. Zandria's poem, For a Burial Free of Sharks, won the Gigantic Sequins Poetry Contest, judged by Lucas de Lima. Zandria's chapbook, Reasons for Smoking, is the winner of the 2016 Seattle Review Chapbook Contest, judged by Claudia Rankin. Their first book, Hull, was published by Nightboat Books in 2019 and is the winner of the 2020 Lambda Literary Award for Trans Poetry. Please join in welcoming Zandria.
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction, Lauren. And thank you, Keisha, for having me. And thank you, Taylor, also for being here. Super wonderful. Oh, Keisha, I'm gonna read the second two poems I sent you. So that is Nativity, followed by Sometimes Boyhood. Thank you for doing this also. I remember like talking with you about certain poems from this project, like individually. So it feels really lush and lovely just to see them now, like in print. I can't say enough how excited I am for you. This first poem is called Nativity. In the dream where I run without breasts, I am motivated by flight. I haven't yet begun to unweld the framework, invent new trauma, whip the stitch, arching each bosom as victuals dangled, withheld. When I hemorrhage against design, it ain't incognito. The neighbors walk their dogs past me. That's me smoking in the alley, letting roses from my wrists pedal to puddle, a misgendering of matter. These hooves unhinge themselves as tiny meteors to cudgel dusk. I redress the splintering woodwork, notched to my likeness, venial beneath the palm and lilac cornucopic delight. To partake in a gender, to fashion oneself a living process of it, casting a net of postures, adornment objects, and grooming techniques into a future tense. Where have I gone and who have I built to take my place? Unsuccessful at the tossing of it, I throw rocks ahead of me and predict where they will land. By virtue of touch, I am every man I manufacture my difference from. The man slipping in the mirror's moonshine enters and leaves me between my double take. Every night, the countryside plays against my eyelids, a reoccurring taunt against my current location, the finale. Currents of corn lapping the sun against my arms, pumping with youth, the sight of my making. And then my last poem is called Sometimes Boyhood. Hovering their mouths like two men, moments before they turn on each other. That is how the grass smells. Need between boys. I wanted a love like a shared look. So relieved to be touching, so angry it took so long, too easy to rehearse into fragility. As a boy, I couldn't hide a single soft thing, round with lemon skin under her shirt, silken folds of fat. The boy thinks she is a canal for shame, where the goodness ends, the scent of new blood, a red scout of longing. Through her private dimension, the boy tables girlhood, and the sweat is good sweat, a flock of braying gestures, shaving September grains, a cunning hunt for each other's touch. Two men sparring over who could end the other's suffering first. Bliss, shame from the body. Was I not one of them? disarming a denim ilk, praying his sword would land amidst my vast acreage. Thank you.
All right. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Warren, I like talked over you. Are you on mute, Warren?
Oh, I was saying, oh, no worries, no worries. Thank you, Zandria. And now, without further ado, this has all been great. Keisha Cassel is a poet, musician, and educator from Cleveland, Ohio. They are an MA candidate at Royal Holloway University in creative writing and a 2019 U.S. Fulbright semi-finalist. You can find their work forthcoming in Variety Pack's Black Voices of Pride issue and their micro-chap Constructs published through Ghost City Press.
I forgot to turn the page during Zandria's reading because I love Zandria's voice. So I apologize. I got swept up. So I'm going to read the first two poems I'm going to read are from Constructs. And then the last poem I will read will be a newer work. Compassion Study 1. Grab cheek, say cheek, rub until they are red, blush. The world has offered nothing so sensational to beckon blood here. Perhaps this is rehearsal for the next time someone holds your hand and your heart flutters. Poke, nose, say, nose. Buy flowers every 2 weeks. Study how they open when exposed to direct sunlight. Add water, they live 1 week longer. Are you in bloom yet? Touch eyes, say eyes. You've stopped seeing your mother in mirrors, fading from your memories, not tangible when you close or open your eyes. Click, click, glass, say glasses. It's all crystal clear when words are added to your chart. Anxiety, check. Depression, check. PTSD, check. No, you don't feel better, but that has never been the point. Pull hair, say hair, cut it until you're lighter. The last 5 years on the floor. Add ornamentation to your body. It's finally yours again. 4 minutes, 33 seconds. Tacit. We always said we would leave this town. After a life of diligent obedience, you left, alone, under a white sheet, restful. Tacit. The life of the living can be so unforgiving. Tacit. What are accidental sounds? There is no such thing when you're not a ripple in the pond or the revered silent tree that falls in the forest. Can you hear wind swirling, raindrops pattering from the roof? The people themselves are making interesting sounds. Even when the sun replaces the moon, you'll hear the heavy breathing. Transformative assets. I planted a twig in that hole. I thought that's how trees grow. I have to check on the hole I dug in the front yard, the keys slipping through our wet hands, our eyes were leaking grief, sank into the ground, my mother's house. My mother's house sank into the ground after our eyes were leaking grief and the keys slipping through our wet hands. I have to check on the hole I dug in the front yard. I placed the twig in that hole. I thought that's how trees grow. Thank you. I gotta figure out how to turn off this screen share now. Where's my stuff? There we go. Stop share. Warren, you got to come off mute.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Keisha. Thank you very much, Zandria and Taylor as well, for all that you have shared, in the celebration. I think I just wanted to check, how's everyone feeling? Good? Good. So my first question comes from a quote by Brandon Taylor. And Brandon Taylor said, "A lesson I have to learn over and over again, despite how painful it is every single time. I am the writer I am, and wanting to be a different kind of writer only makes the writing worse and makes me miserable." Close quote. How do we give ourselves permission to write within while acknowledging our insecurities?
I also want to say that the first time I like read that quote, I was interested in how like thinking like that not only makes the writing worse, it makes everything worse. Like it makes the
Yeah, I'm just listening, so I'm not on the thing. I can sit at the table.
Honestly, it wouldn't be a real reading, you know what I mean, with melanated people out here if we did not have a few people who did know that they weren't on mute or weren't on camera. So I think it's important just to take a moment to honor that moment. Okay.
Yeah. You're right. That was beautiful. Real. Mm-hmm. That that moment is a poem. Mm. Mm.
30 seconds and 33 milliseconds.
Yeah, I was also thinking when I heard that quote, like how when we think like that or we're like trying to become other writers, it makes not only the writing worse, it makes the reading worse, it makes the editing worse, it makes like sometimes it just like makes the sitting within ourselves worse,
I think a lot about that, especially around like insecurities. And one of my friends actually said that Hull sounds like it's written in code. And I think I'm still trying to get back to myself because I think this book was such a product of graduate school in many ways. So for me, it's like an ongoing thing where I'm trying to allow the process to shine through more so in the work and there not be so much of a distinction between the process and the writing of it and finding more of an honesty there. But I definitely agree. I just feel like I've been pulled in so many different directions. I still feel like I'm coming to myself in that regard and that a lot of what I've written is like pretty, but I don't know if it's me yet. Maybe I could say, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the grad school piece, right? Because I'm allegedly supposed to be thinking of like my final project as writing towards the manuscript. And just given where we are in the world, I'm like, this is some poems on the page, baby, because I'm trying to graduate and be done. But also one thing the head of my department said when I started the program is, this program is so short and you will write so much and grow so much in a year that it will come a moment where you don't know who the person is that's writing and you don't know what you're writing anymore. And I'm like at this point where like I like have some things that feel like really ethereal and like of somewhere else, and I don't know what those are because that was not a voice I had before I got here. I'm gonna turn off my camera just briefly to go close my window because it's raining.
I feel like in reading and writing is where I go to like encounter myself in a way, and I think that in poems in particular, I think there is a lack of like the insecurity only comes in when there's an audience. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I resist the idea of writing for someone outside of the moment of its creation. So I think insecurity comes when there are other eyes on it. You know what I mean? And I think uh, sometimes those eyes can be myself in the future judging what I've done, knowing that even in the moment it could be a pure thing that like I appreciated and celebrated and need to have happen. Um, so I think insecurity is just like a vacillation between selves and the watching within yourself as you develop as an artist and a writer. Um, yeah.
To follow up on that question, I'm curious as to where do you all feel you're writing from and where you're writing to? So for instance, writing from the self or a particular place. Um, I'm struck by the, you know, um, whether you're writing for a grad school audience, all these different voices that shape how you're writing is also rooted in place to some degree. So I'm curious as to how y'all are thinking about where you're writing from and where you're writing to.
I, I think despite grad school, I think so much of my writing comes from like this like lack or like loss or like gaps or just like filling in. Um, even most of my writing comes from like trying to answer a question or try to conceive of something that I don't really understand. And where it goes, I I like to think I'm mostly just writing for Black people, but mostly I'm writing for myself because I want to write with the assumption that nobody is going to read this. And that has been like mostly true until like this chapbook got accepted. It was my friends and myself.
I feel like I think I'm writing, I think it's all for me now. I can't lie anymore. I used to, I think I used to not. I used to say it was, well, I think my first book I actually wrote because I was angry. Um, but I think now I'm just writing for me. I'm letting myself write a book of ekphrastic poems about television. So I'm really not trying to entertain anyone but myself right now until it gets to the point when someone else can see it. I think it feels really good to not think about other people. It's like we're so trained to do that, and just work more on refining my taste maybe and bring in people that I find necessary. But there's so much like pressure on sharing stuff. It feels really good to not send work out when like there's so much pressure to just always be sending work out. And now I never send work out, and I really love it.
Yeah, I feel that. I think writing for me is like a practice in feeling and a practice in thinking. And I think whatever I write is kind of it emanates from a moment that I'm feeling or thinking, or like maybe I'm thinking about a particular theory or something I'm reading, or like writing sometimes happens for me in a physical practice. So whether I'm walking or doing something else with my body, and then I need to write something down. So it does feel very personal. On the other hand, I know that like people do read what I write, so I always wonder about like what that is. I never think that my first impulse when I write is that it'll be read. You know what I mean? My first impulse is like I will think about this personally and then become a different kind of person after I've thought about it and you know read it for myself on the other side of writing it. Um, so I don't know if I like right now, or I don't know if I've ever thought about who it is to. outside of myself. I think it is to anyone, you know what I mean? Because I think at the end of the day, writing, my thought about writing poems in particular is that like it emerges from a really personal place and like a sense of uh, like deep interiority, and hopefully that interiority can resonate with another person's interiority, regardless of who they are.
It makes me think of in Edwidge Danticott's Create Dangerously, um, when she's talking about like, and I might be wrong, the immigrant writer, and like when people ask like who is this for, it's like she says like it's for I'm whoever is reading it at the time, right? This is for whoever chooses to pick it up and read it in that moment.
So how was the process for for each of you in terms of writing the first collection? Was it the poem that came first, the feeling that came first, the theme that came first that then propelled your writing, or some combination of it? How was it for each of you?
Sorry, my WhatsApp. Please, let me go click
That
this.
was my WhatsApp. I was like,
It is my WhatsApp.
I feel like if it's okay if I start, we kind of had an order down. Um, I feel like it would be weird to say it started from anywhere that wasn't feeling for me. I think Hull started just from the feeling of looking into the ocean in Ghana, honestly, and just being like, what is this? What is that? I think it's Negroish, but I'm not sure. Um, I think, yeah, I just think all of my stuff comes from a feeling, or or the feeling I get when I like experience someone else's work. But I want to hear more from other people about their process.
Um, if just speaking to constructs, it was like the contest was there and I had the work. So it was really a way of like how to arrange the work. And ultimately that like came through this a conversation in class when someone was talking about Ashbery's The Great Tennis Oath, and that collection starts with the title poem. And they were like seeing that title poem as a way, and I don't get that book. I couldn't tell you what that book is about, but I read it. um, and that book is like very hard to read, but seeing the title poem and the title poem being first in the collection as a sort of key on how to proceed through the work. And so I think like once that clicked and I like constructs is this very, very tiny poem. And once I started to see that as the key to read through everything, it sort of came together. And also it's 12 pages, so it wasn't that much of a struggle. But as I worked through the manuscript and talked to my advisor, he's having a hard time figuring out where is the theme and what is the theme. And I'm like, that has not revealed itself yet. There are just these poems that we are writing.
Can I ask?
So go ahead.
I just had a follow-up question for Keisha about how you came up with the title and what feels like. I keep thinking of Project Runway, and they keep being like, it's not a cohesive line. Like I think of that a lot when I think of like a collection. Like what for you makes a cohesive collection?
Oh, that's like really a great question. And usually to make like a cohesive collection, for me, I really enjoy like shorter collections of 50 to like the like 50 to 60 poem collection, because there's so little there that like the connection is clear. um but I am really into like sort of being like spoon fed the connection. So I love it. Thinking about Hanif's latest work, And like there are those little poems like Black people shouldn't write about flowers at a time like this. And I love that as the connection through it. And as, I think I may have lost the question a little bit. And as far as like titles go, I don't know, because titles get away from me. So I'm cool to let that like go. But in terms of like in sorry for my I'm gonna pause and think. And I think when titles are really easy to keep a hold of, when that there is a poem in the collection that's the title of the work, right? So that feels really, really grounding, um, as opposed to like something out of thin air that connects the book, the collection. If that makes any sense, I think I like ADHD blacked out in the middle. So I hope that came together.
I heard that, I understood it, and I think it's like maybe direct opposite of what my book is, because the title is nowhere in the book. There's one poem that has the word inheritance in it, but the title of the book is not the title of any poem. And just because I don't believe in theme really, I guess. I don't really believe in genre either, just as I don't really believe in gender. So anything that ties anything together, like I tend to resist, you know what I mean? But that's just my way of thinking. And also I resist the idea of aboutness too, you know what I mean? I think the poems are about many different things, and like I really hope that I'm never able to articulate the one thing they are all about. When I knew that this book was going to be a book is when a few people asked me if I was writing a book. And I was like, okay, I have a bunch of poems. I should put them together and then see what happens. And when I enjoyed that process, and I was like, yeah, I do have a book of poems. But I didn't set out with anything in mind. I set out with individual poems, you know what I mean? And that's what happened. And I I can think of one moment, uh, or like a few moments when I think about how the book kind of came into being, and a bunch of them happened when I was outside the country in Paris. Um, when I was thinking about like the loss of not only my grandfather's land, but also gentrification in DC and what that has done to the linguistic and social spaces that Black people take up. So I thought about those things, but at the end of the day, I just had a bunch of poems that I wanted to put together.
I think it's good for people to say that, because I don't know, there's like so much emphasis on like thesis also, and
Yeah.
like that really fucked me up. I like was like, it's not a cohesive line. There's not ruffles on every dress or whatever, and like kept being really anxious about people not being able to connect between the pieces. But then I kind of just stopped caring and like wanting just caring about it flowing through me, and thinking that was enough.
I think to that point, like one thing that maybe I have been like more insecure about through the MA, it's like, do people understand? Especially when like I write a lot. If I write like in and out of like vernacular English, there's always the like, what does this mean? Um, when I change the pronouns throughout the work, it's like really unsettling for folks. And so like things that I wouldn't like give a shit about normally, or I would just say it's like part of the game for me, like have just like popped up as like, oh, people don't get it, or people don't always understand what that means.
I think just again to say some shit that might be wild, but I think it's always important that people don't understand things. I think it's really easy, like within the kind of world that we live in, to think that we understand a lot of shit, and that gets us into some deep trouble, personally and otherwise. So I think that within art making, at least, or within anything making, I think it is like there are cool moments when it's like, man, you're uncomfortable because you don't understand this thing. But what does it mean to really understand something? You know what I mean? I hope that I keep misunderstanding myself like for the rest of my life, honestly.
So the poems come.
Yeah.
So if you like to listen to music while you're writing, who's your top 5 artists, or what are your top 5 albums to listen to?
That's such a good question, Lauren.
Good one.
Oh, Keisha right here. Keisha right here.
Also, once we do this one, there's like 2 questions from the YouTube, so I put them in the chat so we can do those as well. But I want to do this one, and my first entry is "Pretty Girls Love Trap Music" by 2 Chainz. Thank you. It's fantastic.
Wait, it's top 5, right? You gotta go.
It's top 5. If I'm like in a rut.
Keep going. You got 4 more.
I didn't know how to have them all at once. I thought we was gonna bounce back and forth.
I mean, we could do that too. This is your thing, and me gonna give you all the time.
I gotta look for it. It is, I think, I can't remember which Al Green EP I like, but it's the one with Jesus is Waiting on it, or Jesus. Yeah, I think Jesus is Waiting, and it has Hope You're Doing Well or something on it too. Chef's Kiss, love that one too.
Mm-hmm.
Xander, you write yours down, I'm writing mine down too.
I'm writing because like they all just float around.
Yeah.
You know, I gotta keep track of all of these names.
I'm like looking at my Apple Music to see if it will reveal the answers to me.
Okay, I think I got mine. Unless if you want to go Taylor.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is like pretty recent. I guess it's like what I like now. I really love the new FKA Twigs album. Like, just so fucking good. Is it Mary Magdalene? Is that the name of the album?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Mary Magdalene, the Moses Sumney album that came out before this most recent one.
Yes, a romanticism. Thank you.
Like rotating James Blake album. I'm not sure which one. Probably like the most recent one, or like the old one. I don't know. Sev Deliza, like that album, whichever one, that like the long one, like with all the songs on it. I don't know. And then like the wild card is In Keeping Secret Silent Earth by Coheed and Cambria, which is just like, I love Coheed and Cambria. I have loved them since I was 14 and I will never stop. Yes. You too can. That's my list. The emotions just flow it with those albums, I guess.
I got a few impressions. John Coltrane, Live at the Village Vanguard. Big Flame, Miles Davis. Stretch Music by Christian Scott. Lil Wayne No Ceilings mixtape. And then I loop a bunch of go-go songs from like anywhere from 2005, 2009. New Impressions, ABM, because I'm from DC, so just a lot of go-go music. But yeah.
Sexy lady. Yes.
I got 3 more left. So Taisha has this playlist on Apple Music that's called like gospel music from her childhood, and like
It's
so good. If I'm looking for like divine intervention, if I'm there, that's like perfect. I'm trying to find, but there's this Mozart quartet that I don't have the exact name for it because I can't seem to find it, but I had a dream about it like a few months ago. So I listened to it because I want to write a poem about it, but it just hasn't come to me, but I keep listening to the song. And then probably Dvorak's string quintet, which has been like my favorite since high school.
Keisha, can I ask you about the John Cage piece?
Yeah.
I really did that piece a lot. I like the idea of silence that kind of weaves throughout the whole chapbook, but particularly in that collection, in that poem rather. And I was wondering if you could just talk about it and how you relate the silent of like tacit playing to like tacit TICIT, like implied feeling or absent feeling within that poem.
That's so good. So that poem comes out of like, I have a really complicated relationship with 4 minutes and 33 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
By complicated, I mean the first time I like learned about it, like I knew about it, but then, you know, I took my first music history class when I went to college and I learned about it and I was like, white people are so mediocre. Like, so I'm trying to think about the idea that I think 4 minutes and 33 seconds is important, right? I think the idea of like there is no silent world, even when we like turn off the sound, is so important. I think it's important to music making as we start to like think about like who can be musicians and who are credible musicians. Um, but it also makes me think about like um, Kevin Kwashi's book, The Sovereignty of Quiet, and like how Black people don't have access to quiet, and how can you be quiet in a body that is so loud and as perceived as loud? Like, what does that mean? So like that poem comes out of like trying to like answer those questions of like really just like putting Blackness up against 4 minutes and 33 seconds and seeing like what comes out.
I don't know.
So I have two questions from the chat. One, do you think about the structure of your poems before writing, or does it find itself along the way? For example, the structure of the last poem about your mother's house. Mother's house.
I think my belief is that the page will tell me what to do. And transformative asset was an exercise in my lecture. So the exercise was to write a mirror poem. And so that just, you know, that came out of happenstance of having to do it. And you play with like the length of the line, and I like how it like starts long, comes short, goes short, starts long. So I like the way that reflection looks. But generally, not generally, recently, I've like just been more open to seeing like what do the words want to do and like what is the page asking for me to do. That's me.
Yeah, I really like that statement of like letting the page do its magic, or like letting it happen on the page. I think the page feels a lot like kind of like a blank canvas for me. And it feels really intuitive. I feel like now I'm really invested in like minimalist forms and prose forms. I'm more excited by the language within the form. But prior to this, like when I was writing my book, I felt very painty on the page. I felt really interested in building like structure and texture of the poems. So I think that's pretty evident just in the kind of like more symmetrical pieces in the book. Yeah, I think I was definitely trying to paint before I knew how to paint.
I feel like I think I write most things in a prose block or a text block, and then I kind of go from there. And sometimes I break on meaning or on punctuation or whatever. But I mean, it depends on the poem. I really can't say I have a rule across all poems how they happen. I kind of just take them as they come. Yeah.
And then the second question goes off of that. How do you decide which poems belong together in a given collection? And how do you approach editing as far as the organization of that collection?
Sometimes I feel like it's like throwing paint against a wall and seeing what sticks. Um, I think for this one, I talked to. I really just took my cue from the head of my department. I like talked to her about it, and she was like, "Okay, oh yeah, you're gonna start with that poem. Okay, then do this. You know, this is really heavy, so you want this in the middle as like a counterweight, and then you can do these to like come out of the poem." Um, but when I'm like getting stuff ready for submissions or to send to journals, um, which is funny. I remember talking to Zandria about journal submissions and like even that, like it matters like how they are arranged because some people will like read in the. I was just like, please publish me. Just pick the one you like. But starting to understand that that meaning does matter. So it's really like just keep shuffling the pages until you find something you like.
I listened to a lot of, I always felt like kind of frustrated by the ordering process and realized like, just make it like music, I guess. Like, doesn't have to be fully linear, but it should have some kinds of arcs or ebbs and flows, or thinking about relief if some of the work is hard potentially, and also thinking about where you don't want relief to be. I think for the reader, if that's like the moment when it feels most okay to think about the reader because the poems are solid, you're not really going to change them. It's more so about how they introduce each other. So for me, I listened to Channel Orange and took a lot of notes because that, I think it doesn't necessarily have to be Channel Orange, but that's like my height of nostalgia. It was like early college. I felt really happy and carefree in certain ways. And like I had a very deep connection. Warren and I spent a summer together listening to that. And like Warren was like, I always knew he was queer. I remember you. Um, anyway, so I just chose like an album that had a lot of meaning for me, and then I just really dissected like where the turns came in and how like there was a longer song that had like a big volta in it, you could say, if you're thinking about like pyramids. But anyway, you can just kind of find ways that different art forms that you have a more easy relationship with, perhaps like find correlations, and then it feels a lot less like negative to look at your work if you're thinking about it more like an album, because it felt more fun, I guess. So I think that was my biggest like takeaway, was just music as a way to think about organizing a book.
For me, it felt like opening a door to a house. You know what I mean? Like, what poem's gonna open the door? What poem you want to leave out with? And then, like, what poem's gonna come in through the windows throughout your walk or your being within this house? Yeah. And music, obviously, too. Like, the music of the poems, how they sound together.
So another question is, what what has been your ritual for writing, and how has this moment in 2020 impacted that ritual?
I I stopped smoking weed in December. So I've been smoking weed for, I know it's fucking nuts. So outside of like the chaos of the world, I've had to deal with the chaos of no weed, which is cool. It's cool, but part of it has been like a deep look at like a lot of emotional shit, which has allowed me to understand some things about myself. And I think that for a long time, and also because I have a book coming out in November, I wasn't writing any poems, and I was okay with that. Sometimes I felt anxious about it, but I was okay with it, and when it was happening. And I think my ritual was like I was taking every day as it comes. You know what I mean? Just like every day is a new day. It's different. I had to set things that I do, like have a warm beverage or something in the morning. But yeah, I was just kind of taking every day as it is. Yeah. I don't know if that was like too much information about that weed, but y'all know how much I smoke weed, and I haven't had it in a while. So it's been really interesting to put that up against like whatever's happening in the world right now. Yeah.
I think the term is raw dogging life.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts.
And I was just talking about with another friend in this chat about that. Like, people are just out here. I don't really drink anymore, but my goodness, the flower helps me a great deal.
It's nuts. Yeah, it's fucking nuts.
Yeah, cool. Shit. I'm proud of you, or I don't know what the word is, but
Yeah, man, it is what it is. Yeah.
um, I feel like we don't talk about a lot like how writing kind of upsets the process, or more so like writing successes, quote unquote. Like, I guess this last year I was doing a fellowship, but I had a lot of like book tour stuff. So I just felt really scattered. I feel like I wrote a lot in my journal and I like took note of a lot of things I saw and like felt things about, but the actual writing felt very much upset by writing or like the things that come with writing. So that felt weird. I always thought like, oh, like once you have the book out and you have the fellowship, that's when you relax and you like write that book. And it was actually very hard to feel grounded. So I feel like now I'm just finally kind of finding I haven't really known a writing ritual since grad school because I've been kind of all over the place, kind of scattered. So I feel like now I'm just kind of learning it, but every day, like Taylor was saying, like, every day feels so emotionally different. It's really hard to build something that feels like consistent and long withstanding. But every day I think I'm just optimistic about what I can make. Some days that's good enough.
I think mostly because of like training as a violinist for most of my life, I just, I don't believe in like sudden inspiration, and I don't believe that like of the spark, and how my poems have come to me as just coming to the page every day, and sometimes it's just garbage, just like I hate this. Every moment of it, it's not coming, it's not flowing. And I don't mind fighting for it, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. So because of that, I try to write most days, and for a set amount of time. And if I am not writing consistently, I am not writing, right? Like I do say this a lot, like even when you're not writing, you're writing, but that is really just a joke to me because that's like not how my brain works, which like often feels unfortunate in this moment, where I am depressed, and living alone in a different country, and a country that's doing fine, and then like looking at home, whatever that means, the big idea of home, and seeing so many people dying and dealing with death myself and with loss myself, and really wanting the space to like sort of collapse, um, but being in a master's program and knowing that if I take the time that I want to collapse, I don't finish, right? So I still have to like, especially in this moment of wanting to graduate, have to wake up and come to the page at least for like 4 hours to work on like the two separate projects.
Makes me think of Renee Gladman's Calamities. I don't know if y'all read Calamities. Xander, you read Calamities, yeah?
I fucking love that. Am I allowed to swear? It's so good.
You allowed to swear, yeah.
It's like the perfect quarantine book because like I have a literal this is from Taylor. Bless you, Taylor, for telling about Renee Gladman.
No problem.
The shelf just for Renee Gladman books.
You got the new jump?
Huh?
You got the new jump? One long black sentence?
No, I don't. I'm trying to do like the prose stuff first. Like I'm on the sorry, this is live. Everyone's just,
right.
But every section starts the same, so it feels like it's a perfect quarantine book. I keep telling people, like it's like I begin the day this. Right. Yeah, it's perfect.
We have a question from Caitlin.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I was like, let me do this all official, like, and like rooted through Warren. I just wanted to say that it's really wonderful to have all of these people on this call and people on the YouTube live link here just celebrating Keisha and the hard work that she's done. It has been like truly been a pleasure, like watching her process, even times when it was really difficult, but just from like, that dream and of working on a way to get up out of Texas. Speaking about, we were talking about Frank Ocean earlier, so holler. But thinking about, I don't know, just beginning to have this idea and really be like doggedly pursuing it and like trying to make it happen, and then actually like making it happen and coming to not necessarily like a sense of an end, but kind of like a next chapter in this journey. So thank you so much for having all of us here, and thank you especially to Taylor and Zandria for your support, and of course Warren and Chinwe for like holding up the call. And I just wanted to ask a question to all of you about community, because that's something that I feel like comes up a lot in my conversations with writers, with some of you, and like with other folks who are writing, whether it's like poetry, whether it's fiction, whether it's like, I don't know, whatever weirdness, academic, like prose, non-fiction, like essay is. And just get a sense from you all, since you're like demonstrating like a sense of creative community right now by being together, by showing up for each other, by reading your own work in support of like Keisha's work, just what your thoughts are about the importance of writerly community, and especially as like queer and trans people of color, and specifically like Black folks, and just a little bit more about that experience and what it means to you and how it's important to your writing process overall.
I want to say quickly, and this may not apply. I just remember talking to Kate, Natasha, and Taisha about the analytical part of my dissertation and being like, I just want to talk to niggas who read niggas so bad because it's just a different understanding of the text. So I'll start with that.
Yeah, I think it's important to have people to talk to and think with. Caitlin, you know that we talk all the time about shit. Just somebody that, or like multiple people to get excited about and to argue with in a nice way and to get loud with and to really go in about something. And it could be anything, you know what I mean? I think that extends beyond poems. Just like people to think with is so important. And luckily I found that, like, honestly, since going to Oakland, that's when I started finding my humans, you know what I mean, to really link up with. And it's carried since then. And then also, reconnecting with Zandria later at Cavicanum, just all the people through Calum, Cavicanum, all that stuff, you know what I mean? It helps out a lot. I think I live by word of mouth, you know what I mean? So what people tell me is my news.
I feel like you're the news too, Taylor. Someone was like, do you know who Taylor is? Your name is Molly. I feel like I forgot what were we? Sorry, what was the question?
It was about community.
Okay, so it's so hard to talk about this because it feels like it almost feels not like redundant, but it's like I think whatever this is right now. Is it?
Yeah.
So I'm really happy and light, more so than I have. And like, I think about the worst times in my life, and it's just when I didn't have queer Black people around me to like ground me in any sense of like self-preservation or just, folks make you feel like you're just literally nuts for the things you're upset about all the fucking time, both in the streets, in the classroom, it doesn't matter. And I think community is just like the counterbalance, pulling you back to yourself and like holding you accountable, but also just mostly holding you. People are so callous. I just feel like it's like all of the fancy shit doesn't mean anything, really. It's because I'm mostly here because of like folks like y'all. So that's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I get to London or get to this program without community and without Kate, Natasha, and Taisha listening to me like cry about applications for a year, but also like reading those like fucking bad personal statements and being like, you know what, this is almost good, and here's like what's next. And as somebody who's like estranged from family in a real way, like I'm not only like not a writer or not an artist without community, I'm just like not a person, right? Community taught me like how to love. It convinced me that like love was real, because I was one of those people like, boo, this is a fallacy. It's all in here. It's all made up, right? So I don't I don't get the love, I don't get to the person I am, the kindness that I have, the tenderness that I have without like the power of community, the power of queer community, truly, and Black community always, because I will like give up everything for to help an older Black woman, and so like that's where my heart is forever. But yeah, I can't imagine the person I am, like, forget being like a poet or like writing a community shit. Like, I can't imagine being anything but like a piece of shit without the community I have.
Couldn't find a mute button, just found it, but want to say thank you so much, everybody, for your answers.
And I want to be mindful of time as well. It's about what, 5:06, but I was curious if you all had questions that you wanted to pose to each other, to have that space.
I mean, I just want to say thanks for reading. This is beautiful. Also, I just want to say shout out to my sister, Keisha Cassel, who is I came to know everybody here. I just speaking of community, I think one of the most beautiful parts of growing up is the way that me and Taisha's lives has started to intertwine, and like our friendship groups have started to intertwine, and that like makes me the happiest.
Keisha, is there a link for your book anywhere where people can see it?
So if you are on the live stream, if you go to the bottom and hit show more, there's a link to my book at the top. So it's not out yet, it's out tomorrow. So click the link tomorrow and then scroll to the bottom of the page. It's a free ebook. You can donate to a young player who has to move back to America with no health insurance, right? Keep that in your heart tomorrow. This everybody's bio is also in the chat. There's a link to pre-order Taylor's book, a link to purchase Zandria's latest book, and a link to buy some art from Chinwe, who is the reason that this reading is accessible. Please, if I can impart anything on y'all today, fight for accessible readings, because I figured out how to do this in about an hour and a half. So it's possible. Don't let these publishers tell you it's not.
Ra-ta-ta-ta.
Thank you, Chinwe.
Hey. I think, on that note, make sure everyone check out the more option to get your copy of Constructs, to donate as well, to also purchase pre-orders for Inheritance, which is coming out in November, and also Hull, which I think that link is in there too, right, Keisha?
Sure is. There it is.
Yes, by Nightboat. Yep. Mm-hmm. So, again, support, Black, queer, trans writers, creatives, artists, especially in this time. And again, we just thank everyone for coming out and showing up to celebrate Keisha and reading. This has been great, and just a beautiful way to start the week. Just a beautiful way to start the week. So I really thank you, and thank you for inviting me into this process, Keisha. And much love.
Thank you. So folks on YouTube, I'm gonna end the stream, and we hope y'all are well. All right, we're done on YouTube.